Hey guys, hey, welcome back to my channel. If you're looking for Mindustry content, you're in the right place. I run a server network called A10er Gaming. We have a bunch of different Mindustry server types like PvP, attack, survival, as well as some custom game types. Like this is a mod called Sectorized. I'm going to show you how to play this game mode on multiplayer and giving you an idea of the basics of the game as well as some of the changes that have occurred since I did my version 5 tutorial. So right off the bat, first thing you want to do when you jump into a match is help out your team by just gathering some resources. So all you do is you click on a ore vein and it will automatically start going into the core if you're close enough. If you're not close to the core, here's what it looks like, but the resources will move to your character, and then once you're full, you can take those back and drag them manually into the core. So just to begin with, you're going to want to get a little bit of copper and lead and start belting that back into the core. So you got your miners here. There's different types, different qualities on this first row. And then you have belts. So the cheapest belts and your beginning ones are these conveyor belts that are just the regular tier 1s. And then you have these titanium, which are a little bit faster. If you want any information about a specific block, what you can do is click on this help icon. It'll give you some general information. So for instance, these conveyor belts hold 4 items and they can move 4 items per second. While these titanium conveyor belts hold the same amount of items, but it's 11 per second. So a little bit faster. So just to begin with, you're going to want to drag off these belts. And I like to keep them as clean as possible. When you start to have a lot of like congestion, it makes it really difficult to do future development and create more infrastructure. So just be aware of what you're going to build next while you're building the current project. So got a little bit of copper already. Let's start going for some lead. And same thing, I'm just going to belt this together, or maybe I want to belt it back and then go down. I like to keep all my belts in line, and the fewest number of turns is preferable, because what will happen later in the game is when you're looking to do upgrades, because you start having some congestion, it makes it really difficult to not go over this since there's so many turns you got to complete. So just keep that in mind. You know, right angles are your friend. Less turns, the better. So first 2 resources, we have a little bit of both coming in. The next thing we're going to want to do is graphite. Graphite's really important for upgrading your drills. So these mechanical drills will mine a little bit slower. So if we click on one of these guys or hover over it, see 0.27 per second is the drill speed. If I do an upgrade to a pneumatic drill, that 0.27 becomes 0.4. So a little bit faster, and that can make a difference on resources you're a little bit more limited on, like this coal deposit right here. You know, I like to put my drills down in such a way where I can cover the maximum number of nodes. So here's a vein that has a height of 4 and what is this, 7 wide. What I'll do in this situation, just so I cover the most of the vein, is something like that. And then I like to belt around. So to make graphite, this is the first one that you're going to actually have to make a production chain for. So I like to do this. You put down 2 graphite presses and you'll get this block called a sorter. What a sorter does is only the block that you select goes forward while the other blocks go to the left and right. So what you can do here is put down a sorter and make it so only graphite can go through, and then belt this coal just like that. Oh, so we're out of titanium right now. Let me get a little titanium and then I'll go back down there. See, this is one of the issues, and you're always having to prep for the next bit of your production chain. For right now, I'm gonna have to go back down to tier 1 belts until I get a little bit of titanium income. All right, so go back to this. The coal is gonna go directly through, and only the graphite is able to pass through this sorter, while the coal is going to the left and right into the machine, and then it's being outputted along this belt. So now we have a little bit of graphite income. Now later, when I want to come back and expand this guy, I can put more of these machines to the left and right. See these little tick marks around your character? So there'll be a wave counter in a lot of different game modes like survival and attack, as well as enemy incoming units. So just be aware of the fact that the game does have this factory builder, but it also has an element of tower defense as well as offensive PvP. So you want to be prepared for all those incidences. So don't let these sort of go unnoticed. Otherwise, what will happen is on your mini map here, you'll start to see red. So see these guys right here. There's a couple of units that are making their way across. So just to prepare for that, I'm going to build my first defense. So I got a drill, and this is your very basic turret. See the yellow ring? The yellow ring is the range. Now let's click on the info tab. It can target both air and ground units. So some can't target ground, like this scatter has a bigger range, but it only can target air, and it doesn't take copper as an input. It takes lead or scrap or metaglass. And then there's different multiplier effects based on the types of ammo and whether or not you put water in it. So there's a lot of more complicated procedures, but the basics that you got to know to be able to jump into a match are really just building production chains and putting down some basic defenses. So I got this pneumatic drill here, and they're going to feed copper into these two turrets, these duos. And as soon as they get into range, they'll start to fire back. So we've defended from that attack. I'm going to put down a few more of these guys, and on this one, since it's not in range of my turret and I don't have any I don't have any copper down here, what I'm going to do is just take down a belt and then do either a router. A router, what it does is it splits up the resource into multiple pathways. And those multiple pathways can then feed different machines. Another one that I really like for defenses is using a distributor. But a distributor is just like a router, but it's a 2x2 grid, giving you a few more places to place turrets. So that'd be a good example. One thing that you also want to do with turrets is go over here to this wall tab. Now, copper ones are pretty cheap, but the nice thing about walls is they will prevent projectiles from passing through them. So what this means is while they're attacking the wall, I can sit behind it and fire back because it only blocks the enemy projectiles. So let's put a couple of these down as some armor just to protect these turrets from damage. And then same thing down here. We're going to want to grab a few more of those drills and just create maybe some more duo turrets. And then to be able to defend better against the air, what I'm going to do is put down some pneumatic drills and then drop down some scatters. So you see the range of the scatter, it's much larger, and it does sort of like an area of effect, area damage. So these will take care of any flying units that come through. And then once again, wrap your stuff in some defenses, just so they're a little more hardy. Otherwise, what you'll be doing is coming back over here and rebuilding this pretty often. So same thing on this belt. We got that whole thing exposed. And these copper walls aren't too expensive, so use them in the beginning, but they only have 320 health. So against bigger units, they're not going to stand much of a chance. Another thing here is with walls specifically, a copper wall 1x1 is 320 health, but a copper wall 2x2 is 1280. So it's better from a health perspective to use these 2x2 sections. They'll absorb more damage and allow you to repair rather than always be replacing them. All right, so let's go back to the production chain. So we defended against some enemies. We got some basic defenses down. What's the next thing we're lacking? Right now, we're not doing great on titanium. We have these 3 drills that have been built now. Let's upgrade this belt, though, and add down a few more machines. Now, in this specific game mode, this doesn't apply to all the game modes, but in this one, you can't build outside of this shock mine path. All you gotta do though to claim more territory is put down one of these vaults, and you can see the cost for your next vault up here in the corner. So we need a little bit more copper right now to advance and claim more territory. So I'm just gonna go ahead and mine a little bit, and we should be over 200 now. So now I'll be able to put down a vault. So claim some more territory, and we've expanded. All right, what's the next resources we're gonna need? Well, in order to make air factories and ground factories and naval factories, oftentimes you're going to need this resource silicon. So this guy is the first production item that requires 2 inputs. So with the silicon smelter, you need both coal and sand to get your output, and you need a resource called power. So let me show you an example of how to set this guy up over here. But first, gotta deal with this attack. Let's put down a few more of these drills. Another thing with this game mode, if you get attacked, you will lose these cores, and if these are destroyed, anything that you've built in the new claim radius will be destroyed. So be sure to put down some defenses if you're gonna play this game mode. All right, right here. Ooh, well, so right now, look at the resources. You'll run into this oftentimes with when you're playing the game in survival or attack, but you're building defenses, you're building turrets. Turrets are very expensive, so you have to have the production chains to be able to support them. Right now, we're limited by copper. Now, copper is a pretty plentiful resource, so all we got to do is place down a few more miners, and we'll be fine. And then make sure you get belts as well. But you always make sure that you have a little bit of income. Like, for instance, these duos have a price of 35 each. So 70, that's about 210 just right there. And we only have about 150 right now in the bank. So be sure to keep your base resources stocked, so you always have enough. There we go. Then I'm gonna build that. And see how this belt is starting to get congested? I'm just gonna do a little upgrade. So now there's enough throughput, and we're starting to build copper again. Now back over here. Let's get down a distributor, get down some duos. And then we're gonna go back to building the silicon. So a very simple way to do this is look around. I see dark sand over here, I see sand over here, and I see coal. So there's our 2 resources that we need. So let's find an area that's conducive. This will work fine. One second, we put down a mender and some walls on this guy. So power nodes. In this game, when you start with a few solar panels, just enough power to get you started, but I need to heal this guy up so I don't lose this corner while I'm doing the tutorial. Going back to the factory, let's put down a couple of these guys, and we're going to create our first dual input production chains. So I like to use these conveyor belts. One, they'll be fine, not a ton of throughput is necessary. And then I'm going to use just routers for simplicity, just like that. And then if we just put the 2 resources in here, they're going to start to get clogged up since the router outputs to every side. So an easy way to fix this is using these junction blocks. A junction bridges between 2 different conveyor belts without mixing the 2 directions. So if we just put junctions down between, it will keep that separate. All right. So let's get some coal. And then let's get a line of sand. All right, so we've got sand now, and we got coal. One thing you might need in survival is just a little bit of power. An easy way to get power is just find a one-off coal node. So here's some coal over here. There's still some over here. All you gotta do is plop down one of these miners, and then put down a combustion generator. This is the first generator that you have access to. It doesn't produce a lot of energy, but it'll be enough to get started, and then you just create these chains of power poles to power up the device. So see, we got the two inputs. They're sorting, like this coal is coming in, it's routing this direction and this direction, then routing this direction and this direction. Another thing you do is I'm holding the F key. On mobile it's a little different, but I'm just copying, pasting, so I can create more production as I need it. And then we're going to take the outputs and put them right into the core. So, you know, pretty simple little chain here. We got, here's for some air attacks. Let's put down some of these to deal with it. And then I'm just going to use F again and copy over that schematic. All right, so these aren't running all the time. What's going on? You see how when they're operating, they get lit up? And over here on the right, you can see the power. So currently, we're limited in power. So we're at -30 with 0 stored. So two things we can do. We can put down batteries to store a little bit of energy when there's a surplus, but that won't be enough since we are a little bit behind. If I merge these two networks together, you'll see that our total power is -11. So we're slowly losing a bit of energy. So one thing we could do to fix this is just increase our power production. So let's put down a few more of these guys and then drop a few more combustion generators. And make sure you got all these in range. It looks like that combustion generator is not in range. So there's this element of always, you know, preempting these attacks and dealing with them. So just putting up a wall. Oh. So if you die, you just respawn back at your hub. Sometimes there's a respawn delay, but on this on my servers, it's not a very big one. All right, let's see if we can find some more copper, just to get some more defenses up. And then, oh, just copy that over, put down some more duos. Now, same thing over here. Let's put down a mender like I did over here to repair this wall up. See, it's got that area of effect, and it's just going to slowly tick and repair this wall. All right, so those are some of the basics. Now we got some of the main resources, or at least the core ones. The next thing we're going to have to do is, well, next thing I want to show you, one thing I like to do in matches is to use these air factories. Air factories produce two types of units. There's an offensive one, and it's more of a support unit, this green one. I'm going to build a couple of these guys because they actually will mine for you. So I'm going to put down these unloaders. What an unloader does is pulls a specific resource out of the building it's attached to. So I'm going to pull the two resources that are required to build this support unit called the mono. It looks like we have silicon and we have lead. So I'm going to put one of these on the silicon and then put one on lead. And it's going to pull those resources out. And it also needs power, but we got that from the solar panels. And it's going to produce these units over time up to 32. So the amount of units that you're able to have is dependent on the level of your core structure. In this game mode, each time you put down another core shard, you get a few more of those units you can use. Looks like we're starting to get attacked again from this side. Let's put down a ton of these. Nope. So once again, we're out of copper, but the first one of these units has gone out. And it will grab only copper and lead. So it will grab whatever you have less of and bring that back to base. So it's going to go out, collect, and we'll watch it do a drop off in just a second here. Oh, so yeah, dropped off the whole load, and then it went back to mining. So over time, it will consume a little bit of resources to produce the units, but these will begin to produce a big surplus, allowing us to continue to focus on building, construction, and then offense. So the next thing we want to do in this game mode, when you're playing with other players, is you want to make sure that you have a couple units to start to attack with. So let's build a ground factory. So this ground factory will be able to produce 3 types of units. You've got a mech crawler, sort of a support, does like things like shields and energy weapons. Then you have one that's just high damage. I'm gonna build a couple of these guys. These require the same 2 resources. There we go. We got one queued up. And this is a little bit different from version 5. Version 5 was a little more simple. We had a specific building for every production chain of units. Instead, now in version 6, we have these sort of tiers. And each unit factory then can go in the next tier. And what happens is this unit gets pushed from this building to the second building, and it's upgraded into a new type of unit. So if you put in this unit, you get this. So the boats have high health, and they have some pretty long-range weapons. Like the tier 4 boat, for instance, has a railgun with a range that's comparable to some of the more high-end turrets. Seeing down here, we keep getting attacked. So I'm going to try a different type of turret. Let's put down some of these energy weapons, and then I'm going to create a thermal generator. This is another type of generator, but I have these pools of lava near my spawn, so I'm just going to grab those and power up them. And then instead of using copper walls, let's just go straight to the titanium, and I'll put some down over there as well. Now, one thing you could do to sort of cheese the units a little bit is if you leave a gap, they'll prioritize going through that gap rather than going all the way around, keeping the structures I have over here safe. And then I'll put down some of these lancers. These have a sort of a long-range energy beam pulse that will work pretty well. It will target multiple enemies. So yeah, next thing I wanted to show you guys is sort of examples of these higher tier weapons. Here's a foreshadow. It's sort of like a sniper rifle, high damage railgun. So high range, but it's single shot, and then it has to reload for a couple seconds. And you can find all this information here. So shots per second, 0.29. So it's about 3 seconds between shots. But if you cool it with water or cryo fluid, it speeds that up slightly. But this is a very high damage weapon. You have other weapons like the Meltdown. The Meltdown uses just energy. These inputs are not required. So this is a good weapon if you have a lot of energy, but you don't have a lot of the other inputs. Like this Spectre, for instance, has to take an ammunition type. So yeah, I always want to be checking out what's going on as far as the battlefield and dealing with those things as they come. And you got things like this, starting to get some fire. Already my power production, so I'm having to rebuild, and then creating new walls to sort of defend. So that's the gist of Mindustry. It's sort of creating these units, creating these production lines, getting higher and higher tiers of inputs so that you can build these next level weapons, offensive units, and things like that. I'll make other tutorials in the future as well about things like these unit production chains. They get a little bit more complicated. There's quite a few inputs that you gotta have. So belting those in configurations is really, it's probably too much for this beginner tutorial, but I'll have other videos. Another great resource is Discords. I'll link in the video description here a link to my Discord, so you can jump in and ask questions of the moderators and other staff. People are happy to help new players to get into the game. It's really fun. It's just a little bit of a learning curve initially, but that's why we're all here to help out. But I hope to see you guys around. If you got other specific questions, leave them down in the comments, and I'll get to those as I can. And I hope to see you in game. If you want to join the servers, all you gotta do is this. You're gonna go play join game and click add server. My servers are mindustry.atannergaming.com, and this will take you to the hub. So if I go down here to the one I just added, you'll spawn in here. I've got different types of servers. We were playing sectorized just now, but there's like sandbox area to build and construct new things. There's a survival server, which is just waves of enemies, and then we have things like PvP, which is sort of combat focus. And this one can be really fun, PvP. There is an option to do unit control and use the units both offensively and defensively. There's units that command other units or create rallying groups, and I'll go over that in other videos as well. But a lot of cool things in this game, and very active developer. He's been working on this game for several years now and continues to create new bug fixes as well as new features for the game. Version 7 is going to be coming out in a few more months, and there's a lot of player-made content. The game's open source, so it really allows programmers and developers to continue to add to it. And that's one of the things that initially drew me to the game. I played another one called Screeps, if you've watched some of my other videos, where the whole game is coding in JavaScript. But anyway, I'll wrap up the video here, and hope to see you guys in game.